Okay, remember James Garfield was the dark horse candidate that kind of came out of nowhere to win the presidency? He was born in Orange, Ohio on November 19th of 1831. James Garfield was born in Orange, Ohio on November 19th, 1831. He was the youngest of 5 children that were born to his parents, who were Eastern pioneers. So James A. Garfield was born in Orange, Ohio on November 19th, 1831. Garfield was the youngest of 5 children born to his parents, who were Eastern pioneers. Garfield's father actually passed away when he was 2 years old, so he grew up most of his life without his biological father. So Garfield's father died when he was 2 years old. And when he was just in his teens, he was hired by his cousin to drive a team of horses that towed a barge along the Ohio River. So when Garfield was in his teens, he was hired by his cousin, and his job was to drive a team of horses that towed a barge along the Ohio River. So when he was in his teens, a cousin hired him to drive a team of horses that towed a barge along the Ohio River. Well, he worked with his cousin for a short period of time and was forced to return home because he became ill with malaria. Anybody know what malaria is? What is it, Rachel?
It's from mosquitoes. That's how my brain tackles when you get it.
You can get it from mosquitoes or bad water.
It's basically just like you can't retain water anymore and there's too much bacteria in your system, so your body just purges everything.
That's exactly right. If you want a good definition, somebody just gave you. Okay, you can't retain water, your body just purges everything. It's not a good thing to have. Well, he recovered from that, and he enrolled in college. At the time it was called the Western Reserve Institute. He enrolled in college at the Western Reserve Institute. Now it's known as Hiram College, which is on your ID sheet. Kind of like Rocky Mountain College. It was called Billings Polytechnical Institution, and now it's called Rocky Mountain College. Okay, so he enrolled at Western Reserve Institute, which is now known as Hiram College, which is on your ID sheet, I think, is it not?
Yes.
Well, he attended Hiram College for 3 years, and then he transferred to Williams College, which was in Massachusetts, where he finished the next 2 years. So he attended Hiram College for 3 years, and then he transferred to Williams College, which was in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and he studied there for 2 years, graduating from Williams College in 1856. So he attended Hiram College for 3 years, then transferred to Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts, attended there for 2 years, and graduated from Williams College in 1856. After he graduated, he returned back to Hiram College, and what do you think he did there? Taught. He was a professor of ancient languages and literature. So after his graduation from Williams College in 1856, he returned back to Hiram College and served as a professor of ancient languages and literature. Anybody do their paper on James Garfield in here? Okay. What's that? Maybe somebody that was gone. Well, in 1857, at the age of 26, guess what Hiram College hired Garfield as after 1 year of teaching? He already was a professor. The president of the college. So at the age of just 26 in 1957, after teaching 1 year at Hiram College, they thought enough of James Garfield to hire him as president of the college. On November 11th of 1858, Garfield married Lucretia Randolph, who was the daughter of an Ohio farmer. On November 11th, 1858, Garfield married Lucretia Randolph, who was the daughter of an Ohio farmer. And the Garfields had 7 children. Unfortunately, 2 died as infants. They lost 2 of their children as infants who died. So they had 7 children, 2 of which died as infants. However, a couple of his children did some bigger or better things, kind of interesting. One of his sons, Harry Garfield, guess what he became at Williams College? Bigger. President, kind of interesting. And one of his sons, Harry, became the president of Williams College, where he earned his degree. So one son, Harry, became president of Williams College, and another son, James Garfield Jr., served as Secretary of the Interior under President Theodore Roosevelt, which we'll get to later. So his other son, James Garfield Jr., served as Secretary of the Interior under President Theodore Roosevelt. Little trivia question for you. Does anybody know who the Secretary of the Interior is right now? It's a Montana guy. Huh? He did, and he's taking a little heat for spending a little bit too much money on transportation. Ryan Zinke is the Secretary of the Interior. Thinking about maybe a presidential candidate in 2022. We're winning the next election.
Well,
Yeah.
20's next.
Yeah.
That's 24.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah. He's thinking about it. We'll see. President Garfield did serve in the Civil War, and he was placed under the command of General William Rosecrans. Maybe you remember that name from the Civil War. So James Garfield served in the Civil War under the command of William Rosecrans. So which side was he on? You better know that. What side was he on? Union. He certainly was Union, yeah.
What was that last name?
Rosecrans. Rose, C-R-A-N-S. Rosecrans. Garfield did very well in the Civil War. He advanced quickly, and he left the military with the rank of Major General. So he did well in the Civil War. He advanced quickly and left the Civil War with the rank of Major General. What do you think he did after the Civil War? That's right. He entered politics, and he served in various positions. And he served in both houses of Congress in Ohio, which meant he was a member of what? House of Representatives and the Senate. So he served in both houses of Congress. Kind of interesting, he was elected to the Senate, State Senate, in 1859, and to the House in 1862. Now I want you to think about those dates. First of all, he was elected to the Ohio State Senate. What's the difference between the Ohio Senate and the Ohio State Senate? You know who Mr. Greer is, the state senator? Mr. Geis, state senator? That's what a state senator is. So he was elected as the state senator, not the overall senator, in 1859. Then he was actually elected to the House of Representatives in 1862. What seems odd about that?
It's 3-year period.
No. It's during what? He's elected these 2 positions during what? During the Civil War. So during the time he's serving in the Civil War, he's elected to those 2 political positions. That's pretty unusual. He was still serving in the Army during the Civil War when he was elected to those 2 positions.
What was the date of the second one?
1862. Now, he won re-election to the House of Representatives 8 times. Was re-elected 8 times. And what famous trial was he voting in that we talked about? What famous trial did James Garfield get a vote in? Famous trial that the House of Representatives would have been. No, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about it. Just a minute, I want you to think about it. What famous trial was he voting in? Come on. He was elected to the state senate, then the House of Representatives, then to the Senate. So what famous trial as a senator was he voting in? What trial would the Senate vote in? House impeaches, the Senate votes. What was the last impeachment trial we talked about?
Johnson.
Andrew Johnson. Now, remember Edmund G. Ross stood up there and voted not guilty and saved? Yeah. Okay, James Garfield voted in the Senate and voted guilty. He voted to impeach Andrew Johnson. So after serving time in the House, he was elected to the Ohio Senate, and he actually voted guilty in the impeachment trial of President Andrew Johnson. After he was elected president in 1880, Garfield fought against the stalwarts, fought against them, and also fought against the spoils system of government. So during his short presidency, he fought hard against the stalwarts. Remember, they were the radical wing of the Republican Party, right? And he also fought against the spoils system of government, which is what? To the victor belong the spoils. Which president started that whole thing? Andrew Jackson. What did it mean?
That he kind of choose.
You choose people in your cabinet that are supporters, not necessarily know anything, right? And James Garfield fought against that. He did not think that was right. Well, on July 2nd of 1881, President Garfield was scheduled to attend his 25th class reunion at Williams College. On July 2nd of 1881, President Garfield was scheduled to attend his 25th class reunion at Williams College. Someday you'll attend your 10th class reunion from Warland. Then it'll be your 20th.
And then before long, it'll be your 40th.
Which I missed, unfortunately. But I did speak at my alma mater's graduation on the 40th anniversary of my graduation, which was kind of cool. Anyway, he was going to his 25th college class reunion from Williams College. He's walking through a reception room in a railway station on his way to the reunion. He is walking through a reception room in a railway station on his way to the reunion, and a stranger fired 2 pistol shots at him, crying out, "I am a stalwart, and Arthur is president now." So on July 2nd, 1881, President Garfield was scheduled to attend his 25th class reunion at Williams College. As the president was walking through a reception room in a railway station on his way to the reunion, a stranger fired 2 pistol shots at him, crying out, quote, "I am a stalwart, and Arthur is president now." I am a stalwart, and Arthur is president now. The assassin, Charles J. Guiteau, was immediately arrested and charged with the president's murder. Now you remember, I guess you don't remember, we'll get to this. It wasn't until after the Kennedy assassination that it was a federal offense to kill a president. It was a federal offense to threaten to kill a president, but it was not a federal offense to kill a president until 1964, after President Kennedy was assassinated. Believe that or not. Now I said that Guiteau had fired 2 shots at President Garfield, correct?
Yes.
1 bullet merely grazed his arm. 1 bullet merely grazed his arm. Unfortunately, the other lodged deep into his back. So one bullet had merely grazed his arm, but the other lodged deep in Garfield's back. And surgeons, you got to remember this is 1880 what? 1, right? Surgeons could not find the bullet. Could not find it. And he lay there nearly 80 days with the bullet lodged near his spine, with doctors unable to find it to remove it, and not knowing what the damage would be if they did. So President Garfield lay near death for 80 days, the bullet still lodged near his spine. They even brought in inventor Alexander Graham Bell to try to locate the bullet with an electrical device, which he was unable to do. So they even brought in inventor Alexander Graham Bell, who unsuccessfully tried to locate the bullet with an electrical device. Can't find the bullet. What's eventually going to set in if you don't remove that bullet? Infection. And really, the historians say that Garfield remained calm and cheerful throughout this horrible ordeal. But finally, infection set in, and he died on September 19th, 1881. So he remained calm and cheerful throughout this horrible ordeal. But finally, infection set in, and he died on September 19th, 1881. Now, you probably have had this, well, I'll finish with this. Garfield was eventually buried in Cleveland, Ohio. That was his final resting place. But what's in the back of your mind, this is 1881, and historians will tell you, and medical personnel, that if they would have had the x-ray machine and what they consider modern antiseptics at that time, probably not an issue that Garfield would have lived through that assassination attempt. But at the present time, in 1881, they had no x-ray machines, they had no antiseptics like they do today. Medicine was not the same. As a result, the United States of America lost their president. Charles Guiteau, the assassin, soon went to trial. He basically acted like a madman throughout the entire trial, and because of his actions, his attorney stated his client should be innocent by reason of insanity. So he acted like a complete madman during the trial, and his lawyer's defense is that his client should be innocent by reason of insanity. I always got a kick out of that, because people always, anybody that would murder somebody else has got to be insane. That to me would be a given, so it doesn't seem like a very good excuse. But every time you have one of these type of things, they always have to do a psychological evaluation to see if the person's fit for trial or they're insane. But anyway.
They should lock them up. They're obviously dangerous
Yeah,
society.
yeah, but it's amazing how many do that. We'll talk more about that later. Now, the trial of Charles Guiteau lasted 10 weeks, but the verdict took just a little less than an hour, which is really a pretty quick verdict. So the trial took 10 weeks. But the verdict only took a little over an hour to announce, and without doubt, Guiteau was convicted by the jury, and he was sentenced to hang by the neck until dead. So the trial took 10 weeks, the verdict took a little over an hour. Charles Guiteau was convicted by the jury, and he was sentenced to hang by the neck until dead, which occurred in 1882. Well, this is kind of interesting perspective, because you remember that Vice President Chester Arthur was a stalwart, remember? And Garfield was fighting very hard against the stalwart. So you would assume that this would be an interesting transition. Well, Vice President Chester Arthur assumed the presidency after the death of Garfield, and prior to his becoming President of the United States, Arthur's wife had died in 1880. So there was no First Lady during the Arthur presidency. So just prior to becoming President of the United States, Chester A. Arthur's wife died. She had died in 1880, and as a result of that, there was no First Lady during the Arthur presidency. Now, you got to think of this. It's kind of an interesting story. If you're Chester Arthur, remember Vice President Arthur had been a stalwart, right? And he opposed President Garfield's policies, no question about it. Garfield was campaigning in his presidency against the stalwarts. However, because of the fact that Charles Guiteau yelled Arthur's name after shooting Garfield, that bothered President Arthur the remainder of his life. The fact that Charles Guiteau yelled Arthur's name when he shot President Garfield bothered President Arthur throughout the remainder of his life. Now, what else did Arthur maybe do that would surprise you because of his guilt that the assassin yelled his name as he shot the president? What else might he have done? He's got an opportunity as president to either continue Garfield's philosophy of government or start his own, right? And they're polar opposites. What do you think Arthur did now that the information I told you?
Continue on.
He continued. It was kind of interesting. He put himself in a very bad position politically because he felt so guilt-ridden that he continued to implement all of Garfield's policies into place. And he eliminated the spoils system of government. And who did he infuriate? Who did he make furious at him? Stalwarts. Matter of fact, what did it do to his political career? It ended it. Yeah, they saw him as a traitor, and it ended his political career. So, President Arthur carried on the presidency.